So today we're talking about radical self-acceptance, finding wholeness in, quote, imperfection. And I really want to talk about this because there is this idea of perfection that isn't even real. It's literally like imagining we've created a word like bluba, which isn't a word in English. I don't know if it's a word in another language. And somewhere along the line, someone said, you need to be more bluba. And we don't know what that is because it's not real, but we were trained and we were supposed to become more bluba. But of course, what happens? We never achieve it because it isn't real. But we spend our whole life trying to achieve this strange word that doesn't even exist. It's not even part of human nature. And in the journey of doing that, we don't even live. We don't even live our authentic life. We don't live the human life that we were designed to live because we're so desperately trying to be more bluba because someone said this was the ultimate goal, right? This is what this idea of perfection is. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times that you can do something and it's perfect, right? If you want to design a car and you need the engine tuned perfectly so that it will work, perfection exists there. You know, that's a real thing. If you want to, I don't know, spell your name perfectly as a child, well, my name is Katrina. That I have spelt that perfectly. These are man-made things. Man-made things can be done perfectly. But it's really important to understand that these man-made things are static. They're not growing. They're not evolving. They are created, and that's it. Then they just sit there. And ideally, they stay in this state, like a car stays in that very static working what's the word? Order. That's not the word I'm looking for, but we want it to stay in that state because anything else, the car doesn't work. And then it's of no value to us. But human beings aren't cars. Human beings aren't chairs. Human beings are evolving, organic beings. We are always changing. We literally, from the time we were once a little embryo, growing into a child, growing into a teenager, growing into an adult, growing, changing, learning, having experiences, living, dying, everything. Dying in the middle there was weird, but that is the nature of being human. So this idea of perfection doesn't even make sense. At what point are you perfect? At what point? And then in 5 minutes it rains and your hair is wet. Or something happens. Is life no longer perfect? Are you no longer perfect because you aged a day? Is a child when they're 5 years old and unable to do something not perfect until they can do that thing? Like, is a baby imperfect until it can walk? And then until it can ride a bike? And then until it can drive a car? And until it can keep, like, at what point? Right? And this is where the idea of perfect kind of got into us and messed us up. Like, it's actually a false concept that when we even try to strive for it, we've already lost. It's interesting, there was a time that humans just did everything, right? We washed our own clothes, we tilled the land, we made food, we did whatever. And then bit by bit, there became this, the Industrial Revolution happened. And we started mechanizing things. Oh, well, now I have a mechanical clothes washer. Now I have a mechanical car that can now take me places. Like, this is all awesome. But something in our mind started loving this idea of the mechanization of things, almost the roboticization, which isn't really a word, of things. And something in us started applying it to us. Well, maybe, if I can have the optimal car or the optimal program or the optimal business or the optimal something, well, maybe I can be optimal too, right? And so suddenly we start even learning this in school. Create the life that you want to live. Make the plan. Make your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan, and work it, right? And there's a time and a place for everything, right? There's a time and a place for plans, and, we don't have to throw out the entire masculine structure of life. This is really good stuff. But we're not machines, right? We're humans. We're radical and different, and we grow and change in all kinds of wild directions. I love thinking and teaching and living within the world where we look at the masculine, feminine dynamics of life. And in this case, I'm not talking about gender or anything like that. I'm talking about the universal forces of masculine and feminine that roll together, that make life interesting and dynamic and blissful and awesome. Well, one of the most wonderful dynamics of the masculine and feminine is structure and chaos, where masculine is the structure and chaos is the feminine. And together, these things do amazing things. When we have the safety and sanctuary of solid structure and security in our life, we feel free to expand. It's kind of like Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like when we feel safe and fed and secure, well, now I can start looking at intimate relationships. Now I can continue and maybe eventually even look at self-actualization. I could actually discover what my soul is here to learn. But if I don't have that structure, if I don't have that security, I'm stuck there. I'm not able to go deeper because I don't know how I'm going to feed the kids. And this is a primal need, right? So there's nothing wrong with structure. Structure is important. But the problem is over the last couple thousand years, this desire for that structure, the desire that masculine energy is more important than feminine. And of course, this did play out in male-female, right? But that doesn't matter. It's where logic rules over intuition, where structure rules over chaos, where being the one who has gives to the have-nots, like all that kind of thing, that this is all that matters. And this is where this perfection idea comes from. That, no, that me as a person, this is who I am, this is my perfect state, this is my optimal state, and I will work towards it. And if I'm not at my optimal state, well, then I'm screwing up. I'm just making mistakes left and right. Life is messy because I lack self-will. I lack self-motivation. I've made all these mistakes and now I'm not perfect anymore. So I lack self-love. I lack self-worth because look at me. Just look at me. My whole life, you know what I mean? Like we've been so trained that unless everything is picture perfect, magazine ready, that something's amuck. But this is the problem when we've oppressed the feminine. In this instance, structure oppresses chaos. And chaos is life. Chaos is the wild, not wild like I've gone crazy, Wild like natural, nature, human. That's chaos. Because the truth is, we don't know how we're going to be tomorrow. Yesterday, I woke up feeling really down and sad. Today, I woke up feeling pretty good. Why? Oh, well, obviously it was this and this and this. No, it's not so obvious. We don't really know. I mean, it could have been Saturn and Pluto doing something. It could be the barometric pressure. It could be chemically what's going on in my system. Who knows? Who knows what it is? It could be the time of life. Maybe I'm going through menopause. Maybe I don't know. I don't really know what's going on. That's the truth. But the problem is we're so uncomfortable with chaos. We're so uncomfortable with the wild. We're so uncomfortable with mystery. We're so uncomfortable with anything that we can't count, line up, optimize, throw into a computer algorithm or something. We don't honor it. But what if we did? Imagine, in anything, like if you've ever had children, for example. When you embrace the chaos of children, then it's a trip. Then it's fun. And you stop worrying about the house being clean. And you stop worrying about everything going perfectly. Because now, not only are you evolving and changing every day, now you have other little human beings that are evolving and changing every day at light speed. Right? And now all these changing and evolving beings are interacting with each other. Trying to keep that boat going straight will make you crazy, and it'll make your children crazy. And whether you've had children or you were once a child, which obviously we all were, we know what that's like. I mean, look at even how our education system is designed. Everyone must act like little soldiers. And if you're not acting like a little soldier, you're going to get in trouble. Right? And it's like, but we're not little soldiers. We are evolving organic beings. It's really, really, really important to understand this, because it's almost like we have this foundational incorrect idea that sets us wrong for life, right? In Japan, they have this idea called wabi sabi. And it's actually something that the Japanese themselves don't necessarily talk about. It's almost intrinsic to their philosophy of living. And it's based on three main ideas. One is nothing is perfect, right? There's no such thing. Two, everything is always changing. And three, that nothing is ever finished. Imagine living like that. Imagine living with the spirit of wabi sabi. That you are fully embracing the idea that we are all on a journey. We are always changing. Yesterday has very little to do with today. Everything is evolving, everything is growing, everything is shifting. So wabi sabi, they often talk about it like, they think about how it looks. This is how the Western world sees wabi sabi. That, see that imperfect vase? See the beauty in the imperfect vase, right? We kind of look at the what it looks like, and we call that wabi sabi. Or, I can't remember what the name of it is, but when they take, like, say, a broken piece of pottery and they glue it back together with sort of a golden thread, and people often say this is an example of wabi sabi. But apparently, wabi sabi is actually how you feel when you see something that's natural. That's actually what wabi sabi is. It's when you see something and you see a piece of pottery that's slightly different than the others. And something in you rises that goes, wow, I like that. You know, there's something natural inside of us. It's almost like it reminds us of what it really is to be human, what it really is to live in connection with nature. Because if you walk through the forest, right, almost across the board, we can agree that walking through the forest is a beautiful experience. Unless you're afraid of the forest, like I am, in which case I just need to have a friend with me. But everything in the forest is unique, right? Every tree is absolutely unique. You couldn't line up all the willow trees and say, well, this is a perfect specimen, but not that one, and not that one, and not that one. They all grew exactly perfectly based on where they are, based on the seed, based on whatever. Every rock. Is one rock really more beautiful than another? Maybe we might say, but this one has quartz in it and this one has something in it. But you know what I mean? Walking through nature has a million reasons why it's so calming. But one of them is that every single thing in it is perfectly unique. Right? It's that wabi sabi feeling that when you see a tree and it's a little bent and something in you is like satisfied. It's like, yes, right? It's like, Imagine a stream. Imagine like to think, what is a perfect stream? It's not that the stream is perfect. It's how I feel when I see the stream swirling down in its very unique path. There's something in me that says, I love this stream. That's wabi sabi. Wabi sabi is walking through life, fully embracing the impermanence of life. So again, imagine today that every single thing you experience, you know, is changing. The people you know, the trees, the grass, the world, nothing's the same today as it was yesterday. Everything is new, right? Think of that as a philosophy inside, right? To really live like that. It's a huge deal to deeply not just embrace it, but appreciate it, love it. So imagine, let's take the opposite. Let's say you have this idea that no, everything has to stay the same, right? Everything has to be exactly as it is. This is how I've made it, right? And so you wake up the next day. Well, something's different. You're different. Your partner's different. The cat's different. It rained and it was sunny yesterday. So you're like instantly upset. Like it's a recipe for disaster. Whereas imagine you wake up in the morning and you open your eyes and you think, I wonder what today's going to be like. Zero expectation, nothing. You just don't know. It's the fear of aging, right? Like to actually think, I want to stay exactly as I was when I was 20. That's how I want to be. Well, I don't know about you, but I just turned 56. And I love this age. I love everything. The wrinkles, the this, the that, the sore knees, the the whole thing, right? Obviously, it's nicer when they're not sore or whatever kind of thing. But it's almost like this whole package of who I am after living on earth for 56 years, with all the experiences I've had, challenges, wonderful things, blissful things, painful things, trauma, gifts, all the things, all of those experiences are now rolled in to this current state of being. What a trip, right? That is the culmination. That's who I am right now. And tomorrow, I'll be the culmination of all of that plus today. How can there be anything more perfect than that? Right? Like it's perfect. It's wonderful. Again, like if there's anything such thing as perfect, perfect should just be reality. Right? Like if we're going to actually call something perfect, what if perfection is simply embracing reality completely? Whatever it is, I'm in. Whatever it is, I'm all in. I'm not under any delusions or I'm not pretending. Whatever it is great. One of the things I was reading about wabi sabi once is they were talking about how so often when we look at the gardens, we often just look at the flowers in the springtime when they're in their brightest, biggest faces. But what does the garden look like in the fall? Is there beauty in that? Or have our eyes been trained that the only beauty comes in the spring blossoms? You know, I love to belly dance. I started belly dancing like 25 years ago. I've been teaching for the last 20 some odd years, off and on. It's kind of a fun little hobby. And it was interesting because historically, belly dancers in Arab clubs and things in Toronto, I'm just going to talk about, I only know Toronto. They loved having kind of mature women as belly dancers. Women who had all kinds of curves and different body shapes and everything. But there was a bit of age and experience with the women. And it was almost like as the women danced, their bodies told a story through the dance, through the movement. And then Hollywood got a hold of belly dancing. And suddenly, all belly dancers they had to look like they were about 25 years old, long black hair, perfect this, perfect that, and their bodies all became absolutely identical. You know, they had to be slim, big boobs, blah, 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 blah. And that's what they had to look like. And bit by bit, the eyes of the observers started wanting that. They only wanted young, thin, dark-haired, they're mostly dark-haired anyway, belly dancers. And suddenly, the older women, they weren't desired anymore because the eyes changed of the observer. And we have to watch for that within us. How have our eyes been changed? How have our eyes been trained to believe what is beautiful? Imagine you go out to a garden, like even today, if you have a chance to go out and look at gardens right now in October and actually see the beauty in it. See the beauty in the changing of the season. See the beauty in the plants themselves. Like it's actually a beautiful discipline. It's a beautiful exercise. To be able to look at people and see the beauty in them. To sit with anybody of any age, of any size, shape, whatever, able, disabled, whatever, and see the beauty. Get the Hollywood stuff out of our head, all the plastic, whatever, photoshopped ideas that have been placed in our heads, and actually really, really deeply look at the people in front of us and think, wow, this is a beautiful person. But they're beautiful because they're unique. I remember years ago, so most of you guys know this, but years ago I was married to a farmer, and we were on a dairy farm for 17 years. Well, on the dairy farm, we only had 3 channels on the TV. And it was like probably 20 years ago, 15 years ago, well, probably 20 years ago, let's say, we would watch the Miss America pageants or the Miss Universe pageants. The Miss Universe pageant. And it was fun. We used to really enjoy it, decades ago. It was fun. And then probably the last time we watched it was 15 years ago. And again, we're still on the farm, 3 channels. But plastic surgery had become popular. And all these women from all over the world, of all different races, suddenly had the same cheekbones, and the same eye sockets, and the same nose, and the same chin, and the same bodies, and the same breasts. It was so weird. We were just watching this Miss Universe pageant, and every woman had a slightly different hair color, a slightly different skin tone, but their faces were all the same. And I remember my husband and I, we were like looking at them going, that's weird, because we would always pick our favorite, right? Like you're like, oh, I really like, Miss Zimbabwe. Like she's just got such a beautiful, or something, right? Or I like what she said or whatever. So we'd always pick our favorites. And we couldn't pick a favorite because they'd all been sculpted into the same person. And then there was one contestant that looked different. I don't remember what she had. Maybe she had a big nose or a big chin. She had something different about her face. Like there was something still natural about her. And both of us ended up choosing her as our favorite. We were like, and we were having this like wabi sabi moment. We were looking at her going, there's something about her that's just so beautiful, right? It's just interesting. It's interesting that inside of us, we do have this call to authenticity. We want to see who you are. I don't want to be surrounded by robots. I don't want to be surrounded by people who look the same. I want to see everybody in all of their glory. I want to meet you as you are, because that's the juicy part. That's what makes you interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about where this can really get us in trouble in life. One is we really become afraid to make a mistake, right? This idea of perfection, this idea of it makes us think, but if I do that thing, what if it doesn't work out? What if I open that business and it doesn't work out? Or what if I write that book and nobody likes it? Or what if, I try to learn French and I sound stupid? Like I just forget about it. It's not even worth it. I love languages. I once wanted to learn all these languages and I was going to travel the world and everything. And then one of my teachers in high school told me that that was silly, that I should go get a math degree. Total opposite. But I always loved languages. And I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about why many people have such a hard time, especially adults, learning new languages. And they said the number one determinant as to whether or not you will be able to learn a language quickly and effectively is your ability or your ease with letting yourself make mistakes. People who learn languages quickly have no problem just trying it. Oh, I just learned, 12 words in Spanish, so I'm going to try them on you. And they just Blah, 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 blah. Those people will learn the language faster than someone like me, which is really true, who's terrified to pronounce something incorrectly. I will take forever to learn a language if I even ever do become fluent because I'm so afraid of making a mistake. If you want to learn a musical instrument, if you're afraid to make the wrong move or whatever, you're never going to learn, right? We have to have that freedom of a child to just keep trying and mess up and screw up. And maybe along the way, you'll actually learn your own way of learning it. Instead of this, but I don't even want to bother unless I'm already perfect. But this fear of imperfection, right? The idea, because if perfection is a fallacy, imperfection is also a fallacy. It doesn't even make sense. Imperfection simply means nature. It just means natural. Because nature, see, the language disappears if I don't use the words perfection and imperfection. For all intents and purposes, walking through the woods, you are walking through a world of imperfection. It doesn't even make sense. So what if you weren't afraid to make mistakes? What if we realized that, you know what? I'm always learning and growing, which means I have to try new things, which means maybe I do write a book and it's not popular at all, right? And it's kind of like, well, that was interesting. At least I learned how the industry works, and I learned how to upload things to Amazon, or I learned how to do that, and I learned how to edit. And maybe you write your second book and you think, wow, I've really become better at writing books now. I'm kind of glad that first book didn't fly off the shelves because now I've really learned great things. Or maybe you learn 3 languages really badly, but somehow they all helped you learn Finnish, which is one of the hardest languages to learn. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's really something about the joy of making mistakes. I don't know, here they used to have a show called The Magic School Bus for kids, and Miss Frizzle was the teacher. This was really popular when my kids were little. And she'd always say, "Come on, kids, let's go. Make mistakes, get messy." Right? Can you imagine how joyful life would be if you were never worried about ever making mistakes or ever getting messy? Right? Wouldn't that be just wonderful? Another place we get into trouble when we have this idea of perfection in our mind, this false idea of perfection, is that we compare ourselves to other people. Right down to, I wish I was as tall as that person. Or I wish I had that person's body. Or I wish I had that person's car. Or I wish I had their money. Or I wish I lived where they lived. Or I wish I... It's silly. When you really think about it, here we are, all these unique incarnations of the divine, whatever you believe what each one of us is. By even if we believe pure science, that we are DNA exposed and created as these human beings, not one of us is designed the same. Right from the bare bones. We are all right there. You can have 6 children born to the same 2 people, the same 2 DNA structures, and they are as different as you could possibly get them. Right? And they came from the same DNA. The very idea that we are comparable is crazy. You know what I mean? It's like, it just doesn't even make any sense. It's like comparing rhinoceroses or rhinoceri to cats or to trees. Well, I like rhinoceroses better than trees. And at least trees are taller. It doesn't even make sense. But think of how much time we spend in comparison. Right? Think how much time we spend competing with others. Like it's weird. And when we're looking at that person over there and wishing we were like that, we're not even climbing our own mountain. We're not even working towards our own self-actualization. All we're doing is wondering why we're not as strong as a rhinoceros and we can't swim like a fish. Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, that's what I mean. Like, there's something weird about when we have a concept like perfection that actually isn't real or it doesn't apply to humans, then all these other weird things start appearing, like comparison, competition, the idea that, that you're never supposed to make mistakes. It's crazy. Even the idea that a mistake is a mistake. What if there's no such thing? Like, we have this illusion that there's my perfect life and then this life I'm living because I made all these mistakes. Again, this is a false, it's not even real. There is only one life. We each only have one path, and the path we're on is the perfect path. Whatever it is we're doing, all the players are there. All the circumstances are there. There's absolutely zero mistakes, right? The other really, along the same lines as mistakes, is we tend to then hyper-focus on what we believe to be a mistake, right? I'm sure you do that. I do it. We have this, oh, if I had just not done that one thing, oh, that one thing, And then we become hypersensitive to other people's critiques of us because, oh, see, they saw it too. They saw it. They know that I so screwed up. Right? But now I'm not walking forward. I'm not evolving. I'm not changing. I'm not becoming today's Katrina. I'm still stuck in something, last week or 5 years ago or 20 years ago that doesn't even exist anymore. It's a figment of my imagination. Even though we call it a memory, it has nothing to do with current reality. And thinking about it, unless it's healing in some way, there's really no point in it. And we do this a lot. We become very difficult to adapt to life. We really struggle with adapting to new things and to change because we hold on so tight to something. And this can be positive or negative. Like, let's say things are going great. Things are going great in your relationship. They're going great financially. They're going great where you live in the community. And you're like, okay, you know what? I have reached the pinnacle. I'm going to hold on to this for all I'm worth. Well, now all of a sudden, nobody can change. Nothing can change. The world can't change. My partner can't change. My kids can't change. Nobody can change. And I'm holding on tight because I've reached it. I worked my whole life to get here. I'm not, but we don't allow change. Change is what got you to that place. What if we just allow the next step and then the next step and have this discovery of a new possibility each day? But the same thing happens on the flip side. Sometimes we suffer for so long that we have grudges and anger that we hold towards people, and we don't want to let it go. We want justice, right? And even if a time comes that suddenly you're like, you know what? Life's too short. I'm going to get back to climbing my mountain. We hold tight to that pain. We hold tight to those old programs because we've been there for so long, it actually almost feels safe. It's like we have, the Stockholm syndrome, where the person ends up super attached to the person who has kidnapped them. That's how we can become with pain and trauma and depression, that we actually end up having Stockholm syndrome with this state of being. And we grip so hard. But what if in either case, because life is feeling amazing or life is feeling hard, what if we embrace impermanence? Like deeply embrace it. And we wake up the next day saying, well, today will be different. Today is always different unless I don't let it be different. I can make different choices today. I can do different things. I can talk differently. And that's just me. The whole world has changed today. You know, it's so different. It's such a different way of living. So the last thing I want to mention is when we really embrace this, when we really embrace that we are a perpetually growing, unfinished, like there's no such thing as being finished, that we are always in this wonderful, real, natural state, we shine. It doesn't even matter what your body looks like, your hair looks like, your bank account looks like, your love life looks like, nothing. When we fully embrace wherever we are, you get this sort of twinkle in your eye that you're kind of walking around like, and if someone says, yeah, but look at that thing that you did, and that wasn't really a great idea, and you go, yeah, that was an interesting time of my life, hey? And or you're going to do something and they're like, I don't know, I don't think that's a good idea. And you're like, well, I think someone once said, well, that'll be good for the plot. Right? You know, in the land of a life story, this is going to be great. So this radical self-acceptance, which is really not really very radical. It's just actually letting ourselves be natural, letting ourselves be our authentic selves and loving it and letting us change and letting us evolve and letting us just keep on rolling, you know. It makes life so much more fun. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day.